how much a trip to Disney World actually costs? Well, today I'm going to be breaking down every cost from flights and hotels to food and extra experiences, and I'll be letting you know where you could save money and where it's worth splurging. I'm going to let you know exactly how much my trip to Disney World cost me, and along the way I'm going to let you know some budget tips and where it's worth splashing the cash. So let's dive in to see exactly how much a Disney World trip really costs. First up, we're going to start with the big expenses, and we're going to start in the very first place of how you're going to get there, with the flights. My last trip to Disney World, I flew with Virgin Atlantic, and I did splash the cash and flew premium economy. Now for me, flights are one area where you can either save a lot of money or splurge, and it depends on the way you like to visit. Now that I'm a bit older, this is an area that I like to splurge in. So paying for the upgrade for premium economy was well worth it for me, and I managed to get it for a good price. My return trip from London Heathrow to Orlando MCO Airport with Virgin Atlantic in premium economy cost me £1,112. Now, for that flight, the economy tickets were around £700. So for me, it was worth the upgrade. I have seen premium economy cost significantly more to upgrade, whereas this, it was around £200 extra each way, which I thought was well worth it. What I like about this splurge is that you just have a much more comfortable experience. Getting that extra leg room, having those seats that are a bit wider, getting to have more luggage, which is very important for me because we'll get on to the souvenir section later. Those things are important, and I think this is somewhere that is a good place to splurge if you are looking to have a bit more of a comfortable experience. However, there are ways to do this without breaking the bank. Something I really love is Virgin have the bid system. So you can purchase your seat, you might fly economy, and then apply for the bid system where you can bid for an upgrade to premium economy and even upper class. Here they will give you a sliding scale. They'll give you the lowest amount you can bid, and then of course you can go up to whatever amount they suggest. I have actually used the bid system before. I had an economy seat when I was flying to Orlando in 2022, and I bidded for an upgrade for upper class and I won it. I bid the lowest amount, which was £500, and that included the taxes and the fees. So I got it for a fifth of the price. And as I say, you can also do this for premium economy, so you could get it for a much more affordable price. So this is a great way of being able to do a splurge but still make it feel more affordable and not like you've gone absolutely crazy throwing the cash around. Some other ways to save money on flights are to look at places like Skyscanner. This website will go and look at all of the different airlines that offer the flight that you want on the dates that you want and compare the prices. This can be really handy because of code sharing. Something that a lot of airlines do is they will share the same flight even though they are different companies. I have used this before when I was flying out to LA so I could visit Disneyland, and what I did was go on Skyscanner and I managed to see an Air France flight, and it was going to cost me £520 return. I was going to be on a Virgin Atlantic flight. However, if I booked with Virgin Atlantic, it was £1,600. So I saved over £1,000 by using Skyscanner. I would also highly recommend booking flights as soon as they go on sale. Flights typically are released to the public around 11 months in advance. Here you could get the best prices. Now, if you were to book a package and you're going in 18 months time to Disney World, and it does include your flight, what happens is normally they super overinflate the price of the flight because that far out they have no idea how much it's going to cost and they don't want to lose out. So it can actually be cheaper to book your flight separately and get the best price that way. When it comes to the price of the flight, we have seen over the past couple of years it creep up and up. It used to be about £400 to fly to Orlando. Now you're looking more like £600. That is the price I am looking for when I am starting to look up a trip. If I see something much cheaper than that, then I know I've got a really good deal. And if it's much more expensive, then maybe I need to look at other airlines and maybe get into that code sharing system. And of course, there are things that impact the price, such as the time of year you're going to be visiting, the airline you use, and if you want a direct flight. Flights with layovers are much cheaper, but they do add a lot of extra time on, and then you've got the stress of, will my bags be loaded onto the second plane and all of that. So I always opt for a direct flight. And just be warned, if you are looking up flight prices, maybe look them up in incognito mode on your browser. What will happen is if you are regularly looking up flights, they will start to increase the price because they want to panic you into purchasing before the price goes up even more. So to avoid avoid this, use incognito mode so that they won't be tracking you and you can keep looking up until your heart is content. The flight is definitely an area of your trip where you can either save money or splurge, so I hope these tips will help you decide which is right for you. One of the other big expenses that you are going to come across is your hotel, and it's probably one of the biggest decisions you're going to make. For me, I stayed on site at Disney and I stayed at All Star Music. This is a value resort and it's one of the cheapest resorts at Disney World. A 14-night stay cost me £2,208. Something that's interesting in the US is you are charged the room rate for the room, not the amount of people in the room like we're used to in Europe. So as a solo traveller, this trip I did, I was on my own. This is a very big expense because you take the whole cost on yourself. However, if I went with someone else, immediately that room rate would have been half for me. So the more people you have in a room, the better value it works out. But this is a handy way of knowing what is a good price in the US because you're not having to work out, okay, but how many people is that for? What's going on? Whatever rate you see, that is the rate you are going to pay, and it's for the room, and it doesn't matter how many people are in it, that is the one rate. Staying on site at Disney World can feel like a bit of a splurge, but I actually think it can be really good value, and here's why. I like to book when there is an offer on, and when I booked, the offer was the dining credits offer, so I got $700 worth of dining credits and a $200 gift card, and as a solo traveller that was fantastic because I got to use those amounts just on me, which really helped keep the cost down during the rest of the trip. Disney World released their new offers for UK guests in April and it will be for stays the following year, so it's definitely worth checking this out to see what you can get. Last year Disney World did change the offer and it's gone back to the free dining plan that we used to see before. The thing that's interesting about this is it was quite controversial because some people it benefits massively and other people miss out massively because of this, so it is worth pricing up whether it works out best for you. For someone like me that was staying at a value resort because I was a solo traveller, and they are the most affordable if you are doing a solo trip or a budget friendly trip, the dining plan offer is not very good. You only get one meal a day, you don't actually get a dining plan, it's just a one meal a day, whereas the other tiers, the moderate and deluxe resorts, do get the dining plan. And again, the more people in your room, the better value that works out because you're getting multiple dining plans. However, if you're at a value resort, it's not so great. I did do a video all about this, breaking down exactly what you get in the offer, who it's best for and who it might not work out well for, and I will link that so you can have a little look. We do think that this year it's probably going to be a similar offer. I'm hoping that it might be slightly improved, but do go check that out if you'd like to see what the offer could be like for you. My room cost me £2,208 for my 2-week stay, and this was in September, which is a quieter month of the year. Now these days there's really no quiet month at Disney World, but it's definitely quieter than high season, and that also means it has cheaper room rates. So this is quite a cheap room rate for a value resort. You will see it go up a little bit more other months of the year. Some of the reasons that I love staying on site at Disney World is the fact that you're in that Disney bubble. You get to have that magical feeling your whole trip. You're super close to get to everywhere you need to go. You don't have to be worried about transportation, stuff like that, because Disney has its own free transportation system, and if you were to hire a car, you get free parking at your hotel and the parks, which I think is a huge benefit. Like I say, you also take advantage of these offers. You get early park entry. There's loads of great reasons to stay on site at Disney, but it can feel like a bit of a splurge because it is more expensive than staying off site. However, there is a caveat to this. When you are staying off site, oftentimes there can be hidden charges. This could be stuff like resort fees, parking fees, transportation fees, and once you add these up over the cost of your trip, sometimes it's not much more to stay on site at Disney, so definitely look these up before you book staying off site. I have actually done a video all about the hidden charges you may encounter at an off-site hotel, so we'll also link this so you don't get caught out and you can make a fully informed decision about whether it's worth splurging to stay at Disney World or if you're getting a really good deal and you can save money by staying off site. And if you are staying off site, the biggest factor to consider is how you're going to get to the Disney parks. Now some hotels will offer a shuttle service, but they catch a lot of people out with this. When they say they offer a shuttle service, what they normally mean is they have 2 shuttles in the morning and 2 in the afternoon, which means if you want to get to the parks first thing in the morning, you don't have an option, and you can't stay for the fireworks and get back to your hotel with that shuttle. So do look into things like that, because I know so many people who book, they're so excited to go, they turn up, they find out the times, and then they have to spend out hundreds of extra dollars they weren't expecting on Ubers or Lyfts, taxis, things like that. So make sure you factor in all of those costs so you can really see the true comparison between staying off-site and on-site. And if you do decide to stay in a Disney World resort, of course, there you have the option to save or splurge. Value resorts are the most budget friendly. They are really, really nice resorts. I have to say, I'm really impressed. They're listed as like 2-star hotels, but they're very, very nice. They're sleek, they've got very nice design. A lot of them have just recently been renovated. They don't have lots and lots of Disney theming, which I would love. I love it when it looks like Disney have thrown up on the place, but they're really comfortable. They've got absolutely everything you need. One thing to consider is that value resorts tend to have the least amount of amenities, so they will often have a bus to get to the parks and the least amount of dining options, typically just 1 quick service location. However, even within the value resorts, there is some differences. So if you wanted to pay a little bit more, you could stay somewhere like Art of Animation, and then you have the buses plus the Skyliner you can use. When it comes to moderate resorts, they have a nice balance of both quick service and table service dining, and the amenities being a little bit more extra than what you would get in a value resort. And the deluxe resorts have multiple types of restaurants on offer. They are the closest to the parks, and they offer the most amount of transportation options, which is why they come with the high price tags. If you're going to be spending a lot of time in the parks, then value resorts are absolutely perfect. If you just need somewhere to sleep, they are going to be fantastic. You don't need all the bells and whistles. If you are wanting to have a bit more of a luxurious experience and you are going to be spending a lot of time at the hotel, it might be worth upgrading. However, I would say if you are going to be primarily spending your time in the theme parks, it's really not worth the extra costs. This is an area where you could save money. And the final big expense you're going to encounter during your trip are the park tickets and the upgrades you can add to them. I had the 14-day park hopper tickets as part of the UK deal, so you actually got 14 days for the price of 7, and they cost me £519. Now it is worth noting that since I booked, they have changed to a dynamic pricing system, so now the tickets will change depending on the time of year you visit, and with that the cost will increase or decrease. Just so that you can get an idea, the same tickets today would cost £619, so about £100 extra. This is definitely one of the big expenses, because sometimes you can see a really good room rate at a hotel, whether it's offsite or at Disney, and then you add the tickets on and you go, oh gosh, because suddenly that price can massively jump up. And unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do about it. However, there are some websites that are great for offering discounts. Somewhere I like is attraction tickets. Here they will often do sales and discount codes. You can save some money on tickets, which can help massively. What I would say though is if you're wanting to take part in the UK deal, what you do have to do is book your hotel and tickets in a package so that you can get access to this offer. Now you don't have to directly book with Disney, you could book with a different travel agent, or even attraction tickets themselves do hotel and ticket packages, but it does have to be a Disney hotel and Disney ticket package to be included in the offer. One of the absolute worst ways to purchase your tickets is on the gate. Now I do know sometimes people are thinking, I don't want a 14-day ticket, I'm not going to use it, I'll just buy it on the gate. However, this is the most expensive way you can book. UK guests get a fantastic offer with these UK tickets, whereas if you buy them on the gate, they're between $160 to $185 upwards to go into the parks for one day. This is definitely not the way to do it. Always make sure you go and get your tickets in advance and you will get the best prices. It is worth noting that with the UK tickets, you also get park hopping included and photo pass. These are both add-on prices if you were to buy them at the gate in the US, and they could quickly add up the cost. So the fact that in the UK tickets you can go to multiple parks in one day and get all of your professional Disney photographer photos for free is fantastic. And of course, something you can do if you want to cut down your queue times whilst in Disney is purchase multi-pass and single pass. So for my trip, I purchased multi-pass for 8 days of my trip, and then I bought 3 single passes, and it came to a total of £170. I have to say, this is an area that I do love to splurge in because multi-pass does save you so much time. I typically waited less than 10 minutes for all of the rides. Some of them maybe a bit longer, but the queue times were sometimes 70, 80, 90 minutes. So to cut down the queue time massively was amazing. I feel like it's worth every penny, and particularly because whilst I was there I worked out a strategy that helped me fit absolutely everything into just one day with multi-pass, so you really got the best value out of it. And I will link to that video so you can get the access to those secrets so you can maximize its potential as well. But of course, this is not necessary. You can just queue in the normal standby lines. The queues may be a little bit longer, but if you're going in knowing that and you're quite happy, this could be an area of your trip where you can save money. Now, it is worth noting with multi-pass and single pass that the prices do fluctuate throughout the year depending on how busy the parks are. So because I was there in September, this is probably a cheaper rate, and if you were to go somewhere like the height of Christmas season, it would be more expensive. But one way you are going to save money is by not buying multi-pass Premier, and I will always die on this hill. It is not worth the cost. Multi-pass Premier works exactly the same as regular multi-pass, except you don't have to pick time slots. You just turn up and ride the ride. However, this often costs 10 times as much as the regular multi-pass, which is absolutely not worth it just because you don't have to pick a time slot. So if you are someone like me where you do not like queuing, you don't want to be in the hot sun for a lot of time, and you just want to get the most into every day, multi-pass and single pass can be a fantastic additional thing to splurge on when you go to Disney World. The next area we are going to talk about is something that is super important to any trip, and that is food. At Disney World, there are hundreds and hundreds of restaurants to choose from and some really, really good dining. And we all know having those famous Disney dishes is a big part of any trip. But this is an area where the cost can quickly escalate. Now, as I mentioned before, for my trip, I did have $700 worth of dining credits. So I was able to use them and cut down my costs massively, which is why it's really good to look out for those deals. But ahead of a trip, what I always do is look up the different restaurants that are on offer and decide where I want to eat. And from that, I can then work out a rough cost because the Disney World website does have all the menus and prices up. So I knew how much to budget. I did take an extra £520 so that it would cover all of the table service meals that I wanted. It would cover snacks, drinks, extras like that. However, I did not spend anywhere near that amount, and I think I ended up spending about an extra £250. Now, it is worth saying, if I had just eaten in quick service locations and had 1 or 2 meals a day, I could have absolutely used that $700 and not paid a penny extra. But as you may have guessed, this is an area that I like to splurge at Disney World. I really, really love the table service meals. I love the amazing settings, the great food, and character dining meals. So I always do like to budget a bit more in this area of my trip. And what I also like to do is I like to over budget. So on the menu, I will look at the options, and if there's multiple that I might want, I'll pick the most expensive option as the one that I'll do my guide pricing with. And same with, I'll always add on a drink, and perhaps if I'm thinking about possibly eating 2 or 3 courses, top that up. However, once I get to Orlando, it's a completely different experience because where it's very, very hot, your appetite gets suppressed massively. So I don't think I hardly ever had more than 1 course. There was loads of snacks that I wanted to try, but I was just too full, didn't eat them. So I managed to save a lot of money this way. So I do always over budget for this, and every time I come back with money. What's great at Disney World is they offer both quick service and table service dining. So if you're wanting to keep the costs low, you could just focus on quick service meals. These are like fast food restaurants where you order at the counter and seat yourself. And this is a really, really great way of keeping the costs down. There are some really fantastic options around Disney World, and here you don't waste any time sitting down and like having a long drawn out meal. You just get in, get your food, eat, and then go back into the parks to enjoy your day. However, if you are wanting to have a little break in the day, rest your feet, take in some aircon and eat some great food, then table service meals are well worth the splurge. There are lots of fantastically themed restaurants such as Cinderella's Royal Table where you get to eat inside Cinderella Castle, or somewhere like Jungle Navigation Skipper Canteen, where all of your servers act like Jungle Cruise skippers and tell those hilarious dad jokes. There's so many amazing themes. Also lots of different cuisines on offer and types of dining. You can dine whilst sitting inside a car, inside a movie theatre. You can dine and have table theatre happen in front of you in somewhere like Teppan Edo. There's so many cool table service restaurants, so it's well worth, even if you just want to do one meal to splurge a little bit, maybe you're celebrating a special occasion, to have a little look at the table service restaurants. My problem is I'm obsessed with them, so this is an area that I know I will always budget a bit more money towards because I'm going to splurge here. And of course, no trip to Disney is complete without a character dining meal. And it could be that you just do this as your one table service meal during your trip. Character dining is a fantastic way to meet multiple characters at once for one set price. And there are some really fantastic character dining meals at Disney World. Some of my favourite character dining meals are Topolino's Terrace for its stunning views, its really relaxed character interactions and fantastic food. Tusker House in Animal Kingdom. This has fantastic African cuisine. Everyone raves about Boma, but if you don't fancy taking a trip out to Animal Kingdom Lodge, Tusker House is very, very similar. And again, you're getting to meet Disney characters. Hanging out with Mickey in his safari costume is amazing. And I also really like Garden Grill in Epcot. This is a really unique restaurant because not only are you meeting characters, it's a revolving restaurant where you go inside a ride and you can also dine on food that was grown inside the Epcot greenhouses. So I think it's such a fantastic experience all around. I would say if you are keen to meet characters but save time, then a character dining meal is somewhere you should absolutely splurge. And if you want to have the full Disney experience, just doing one during your trip is well worth the cost. And of course, we've all been on Instagram and seen those Insta-worthy snacks. So this is definitely something to budget for. As I say, I always budget for loads and loads of snacks. I never ever eat as many as I think I'm going to. But an area that I do end up spending a lot of money is frozen drinks. In the heat, you don't realise how much having a little slushie will help you. So this is something that I always have to budget for, an emergency slushie budget. But the good news is there's also lots of ways to save on food at Disney World. So for example, a really good option is to take snacks or breakfasts with you. I always take some cereal bars out with me, and then that way I know if I need a breakfast, I've already got something with me. I don't have to spend out money on it. And that is a really good way to cut down costs. Another thing that saves tons of money is to buy drinks from a supermarket. Now, I bought 24 bottles of water and it was just over $5. However, in Disney World, it costs almost $5 for one bottle of water. So that will save you lots and lots of money. You can either go to a supermarket yourself or have them delivered to your resort. So that is a really good option. And of course, you do get that free water from quick service restaurants. So you can go into any quick service restaurant and ask for a free water. You don't even have to purchase anything, they will give it to you. And if you were wanting to save money, then a really good option is to eat in the quick service locations. These are the cheapest ways to eat at Disney World, and this will save you a lot of money. It is worth noting that whenever you buy any food at Disney World, tax will be added on top, so do factor that in. And if you are going to eat at table service restaurants, you will also need to include a tip, which is typically 20% of the bill, which can add up the costs very, very quickly. So be sure to factor these into your budget, and then that can also help you decide, do you want to save a bit or do you want to splurge a bit? Next up, we're going to be talking about extras and experiences. One of the extras you're going to need to consider are transportation costs. I did 2 weeks of car hire whilst I was out there. I did the rental via Hertz and I purchased this via Discount Florida Car Hire, and it came to £531 for the 2 weeks. This was for a compact car, but of course in America compact cars are very different to what we would consider a compact car. And it is worth noting I was one person on my own. So yes, I did have 2 cases and a backpack, but if you are more people and more luggage, you may need to upgrade the car so it's big enough to transport you all. Something that is great about Discount Florida Car Hire is you can add on top-up insurances and sat-nav hire, and I added both of these on. The £531 was for the car hire, the extra insurances and the sat-nav. Now you could save some money here, you could not have the sat-nav. The sat-nav I think was an extra £15, but I did work out once I arrived that I could use Android Auto in the car itself, so I didn't need to hire a sat-nav. If you do hire a America, a way you can save a lot of money is by getting the visitor's toll pass. With this, you get a little card that you hang up in your car, and when you go through the tolls, you get a discounted rate, up to 80% discount, and I spent just about £5 on tolls because of this, so I saved a lot of money, and it cost me virtually nothing to drive around Orlando during that 2 weeks. On my way back to the airport, I filled up with fuel. It was the only time I needed to fill up with fuel during the whole trip, and that came to about £30, which is super reasonable. Fuel is much cheaper in the US, and you most likely won't spend as much as you think you will. One of the great things about hiring a car and staying at Disney World is you don't have to pay for parking at your hotel or in the parks. Now, I would say if you're staying off-site and hiring a car, do factor in parking costs. They can be very expensive. Disney World is around $30 a day, Universal is $32 a day, so this can quickly add up. But this is why I always say make sure you add up off-site costs and on-site costs so you can get a full picture of how much you're actually going to pay, and oftentimes it's not much different to staying on-site at Disney World. If you aren't going to be hiring a car, you're obviously going to need to get from the airport to your hotel. If you're staying on-site at Disney, you can use Mears Connect, which is a coach service which costs $32 for a round trip for adults, which is a really good price. They're quite frequent and they do stop at all of the different Disney resorts. Another option could be to use Uber or Lyft. These typically cost between $40 to $50 to get to Disney World from MCO Airport, or there are private transfers. However, these are quite pricey, typically around $190. If you are going to be using Uber or Lyft, I would download both apps and check the prices in both, because sometimes you will find Uber will be surging and Lyft isn't, so you could get a better price, and vice versa. So that's a really good way to save some money. As you can see with transportation, you can either save some money or splurge, depending on what is most convenient for you and the way you want to experience Florida. I love to get a hire car because I just love being on my own schedule. It's so nice just to be able to go anywhere on site at Disney World within 15 minutes. It makes it super easy to take breaks or park hop. You're not wasting a lot of time going backwards and forwards on buses and waiting around, and just having the absolute freedom to do whatever you like. If I want to go to the supermarket, I can go to the mall. It's just great. So I do love car hire. But if you do stay on site at Disney World, because you've got the free transportation, it's really not necessary. If you do factor in a bit of extra time so that you can get to the parks and wherever you fancy going on site at Disney World, this could be a fantastic way to save money. Another transportation cost that I had for my trip was airport car parking. So I did drive up to Heathrow and I parked at Purple Parking, and it cost me £161 for a 2-week stay. Now, this may not be something you need, but it is worth factoring in costs like an airport hotel if you need to get there the night before, or stuff like fast track security, or one of the airport lounges if you want to make yourself a bit more comfortable. So do factor these things into your budget as well. But again, this is an area that you can save or splurge. If you don't need to stay in a hotel, go to an airport lounge, park, anything like that, you can save a lot of money in this area. But if you want to splurge, you might want to get through security quicker, or pay to stay in one of these lounges where you get like the nice relaxed atmosphere and food. So they can be an area that you can pay a little bit more but kind of elevate your experience. Something that I absolutely love to do at Disney World are the special experiences. These are a really fantastic way to enhance your trip and do things that you don't normally get to do. These could be things like backstage tours, dessert parties, special events, and it is so much fun. And I think it's great because every time I go to Disney World, I do something a bit different. So the trip is always unique. However, these are additional charges. So this is an area that you might not need at all, and that way you can save money. However, if you do want to splurge, there's some really great things I want to talk to you about. This last trip, I did the Happily Ever After firework dessert party. This cost me £78 and I loved it. I love Happily Ever After. It's one of my favourite things. But what I don't like is the big crowds and crush on Main Street and the kids on shoulders, and I never see the show. So this time I was like, I'm going to splurge and do the dessert party. And I'm so glad I did. We had the most incredible view. We were super close, and the desserts were really great as well. So this is an area that I definitely think it was worth splurging in. That is one of the more pricey things you can splurge on, but there are some really good things that don't cost so much. I also did 2 backstage tours. These were $30 each, which were fantastic. Now, they do add taxes onto these experiences and tours, so it cost me £30.50 for each of those tours, but to get to go backstage in areas you never normally get to go, have these amazing talks by incredible cast members, and learn so much about the parks was fantastic. And I think for £30, it's so worth the money. Something I've done on a previous trip that I think was so unique and super fun was getting a haircut on Main Street. Harmony Barbershop is a working barbershop, and I paid around £20 and I had a haircut, and then I got the pixie dust where they put glitter on your hair, and it was incredible. And it was so nice to be able to have a unique experience, but it not cost too much. If you are wanting to splash the cash a bit, then 2 things I would super recommend are the Keys to the Kingdom tour, where you go backstage on a walking tour in Magic Kingdom for 5 hours and go underneath the park in those famous utilidors. This is a must do for Disney fans. If you love the parks, and particularly Magic Kingdom, you are going to be blown away. This is one of my favourite things I've ever done, and it cost around $120. And also building the lightsaber at Savi's workshop. If you're a Star Wars fan, of course you get to make your own custom lightsaber, which is cool enough on its own, but the whole experience is really beautiful. It's really like emotional. It's amazing. So if you like Star Wars, this is so worthwhile. That is about $250. So that is on the pricier end, but of course you do get the lightsaber and a little carry case included in that price. So this of course is an area of your trip where you can either save money or splurge, and for me, doing the dessert party and the 2 backstage tours cost me £139. Now, during my last trip I did visit in the Halloween season. This time I didn't do Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, which I have done previously and is excellent, so I'd highly recommend that. It is a pricier option. I think the dates that I was there, it was around $120 to go to the event, and that was one of the cheaper nights. The closer you get to Halloween, the more expensive it gets, but it is so much fun and well worth it. However, I couldn't go to Orlando in the Halloween season and not do anything spooky, so I did go to Halloween Horror Nights, and I wanted to give you a quick breakdown of what that might cost you. So my ticket to get in was £68, which I think is a very good value. When we look at something like Mickey's Not So Scary, which is about double the price, it's very cheap. But to get the most out of your experience, you might want to do some add-ons. One of the first add-ons I did was add Scream Early. This meant I could go into the park hours before the event started. You could go on some rides, you could soak up the atmosphere, maybe get some food, and this was £46, which I don't think is bad at all. Because I wasn't going to be visiting Universal during this trip, it was so great to be able to go into the parks a bit early, and I didn't get to do many rides because I was just like so excited to be there and looking around, but if you utilised it, you could really get a lot into those few hours. Something I did splurge on when visiting Halloween Horror Nights was the Express Pass. This allows you to go into a very short queue to get in all 10 of the houses, and I queued for maybe 10 minutes for most of the houses, which was fantastic. All of them were 70 minutes or over, so this saved me a lot of time, and because I was only going to this event for one night, I wanted to get the most out of it, and I certainly did that. We got to do all 10 houses, and the Express Pass cost me £125. One of the reasons it is so high is to keep the numbers low so that you do have those short wait times in the Express queue. Now, what I would say is you don't have to get Scream Early and the Express Pass. With the Express Pass, because you're going to get to do so much, you could just buy that and have the most amazing time. Scream Early is great if you want to get into the park early because maybe you're not going to go to Universal for the rest of the trip, or if you're going to Halloween Horror Nights and not buying the Express Pass. If you're not doing that, Scream Early is 100% worth it. However, I don't think you need both of them at the same time, but it was super fun to have the full experience. Something else that I did add on for Halloween Horror Nights is I did park at Universal, and this cost £25. So my whole Halloween Horror Nights experience, including the entrance ticket, Scream Early, the Express Pass and parking, came to £263. Now, this is very expensive for one night, and it definitely was a splurge, but it is something I was glad that I did. The Express Pass made such a difference. We had such an enjoyable night, did all 10 houses, and we didn't queue for hardly any of them. So it was so worthwhile. I would absolutely do that again. But of course, you can do it cheaper if you didn't do the Express Pass and maybe maybe you did scream early instead. And the big one, the one you've been waiting for, is souvenirs and merchandise. Now, I am someone who loves the merchandise. I always have to try and rein it in. Whether I'm successful or not is a different matter. But this, of course, will be up to you. Some people I know are happy to have just a magnet. I'd love to be that person, but I can't stop myself. So this is definitely an area that you can save or splurge in. Now, I was very lucky that with my package, I had a $200 gift card. So I got lots of merchandise on the mouse, which was fantastic. But I did take an extra £200 with me. And of course, I spent all of that. Something that I buy a lot of are Disney clothing. And I want to give you some rough ideas of how much things would cost. So t-shirts are typically between $30 and $40. Spirit jerseys are around $80. The special edition ones are a bit more. And stuff like sweatshirts or jumpers are around $50 to $60. But of course, there is lots of merchandise that is cheaper. If you do want to go home with a little mug or a magnet keyring, there are lots of more affordable options. And of course, there are things that cost way more. If you want to come home with a Swarovski covered castle, if you've got hundreds of thousands of dollars spare, fill your fantasy. But it is good to know that there are souvenirs for all different budgets, so you don't have to break the bank, and going in with a budget in mind can be a great way to try and keep yourself on track. Some ways that you can save money on merchandise is if you go to the Disney outlet. There are two in Orlando. You can go to the premium outlets on International Drive or at Vineland, which is the closest to Disney World. And here you get a lot of merchandise that is still on sale in the parks actually, but for a much cheaper rate. For example, I was getting t-shirts for $7, so you can save a lot of money here. It is hit or miss depending on what they have in whilst you visit. So sometimes there's not always things you're looking for. Something I did find is, as I love the clothing, when I was there, typically they had tons and tons of extra small sizes, but not much of other sizes. So if you are extra small, you could have a field day. And again, it just depends on when you visit and what's available, but this can be a really good way to save money. And something I highly recommend are things like ponchos, or if you've got kids, bubble wands, autograph books, are buying them in advance of your trip. At Disney World, these are going to be super expensive. And if you get them before you go, you can get ones that are Disney themed, but they're going to be so much cheaper. So if you don't need to get it from the park, get it in advance and save that money. So now I'm going to give you a total breakdown of the cost of my trip and the full final total, so you can see just how much a trip to Disney World may cost you. Now, of course, I have let you know the areas that I splurged in, which, speaking out loud, I've realised quite a lot of areas. But there are lots of ways to save money. So this is the cost that it was for my trip, but it could be much cheaper depending on the areas you'll cut back on. So for my trip, I spent £2,208 on the hotel, £1,112 on my premium economy flight, £519 on my 14-day Disney park tickets, £727 for transportation, £170 on multipass, £139 on special experiences and tours, £263 on Halloween Horror Nights, £200 on food because I did have that $700 voucher from Disney, and £200 on souvenirs. And I did also have that $200 gift card from Disney. So the final total for my 2-week solo trip to Disney World was £5,538. Now, of course, there are areas this could have been cheaper. If I had gone with someone else, my accommodation cost would have been in half. If I didn't upgrade the flight, I would have saved £400. I could have not eaten in table service restaurants or done special events and tours, and that would have saved me quite a lot of money. And that is something that I do like about Disney World, is that you can go and experience it however you like. So if you are wanting to be more budget friendly, you don't have to do the bells and whistles and add on the extras. However, if you want to do something super special and have your all-out dream trip, there's loads of ways you can add on things to enhance it, and it will cost you a bit more, but the value you can get from it is amazing, and the memories you can go away with, fantastic. Something that I really like to do is each trip visit slightly differently. So some trips I will splurge more, and the next trip I'll do more of a budget trip. Something that I would do in future is consider not hiring a car. That way you're going to save hundreds of pounds, but if you're using free Disney transport, you can get absolutely everywhere you need to go. I can also cut down on my food costs. I absolutely don't need to eat at as many table service restaurants as I do, but I do really enjoy it. Some of the areas that I personally like to splurge on are the the flights to do that upgrade so it's a bit more comfortable, and staying on site at Disney. I just love being in that bubble and being able to get everywhere super quick. Plus, I will always do multi-pass and single pass. For me, as someone who does not enjoy the queuing so much, and when I do have a foot condition as well, I like to try and not be on my foot so often. So using multi-pass can be great because don't have to queue, saving my foot. It's a winning combination. So for me, this is something I would always like to splurge in. But like I say, what I love about Disney is you can mix and match and save in some areas, splurge on others, depending on how you like to visit. So when you are going to be visiting Disney, what areas do you think you may splurge in? Are there any areas that you have budget saving tips that you think people should know about? Do let me know in the comments down below. If you are planning your dream Disney World trip, but you have some burning questions that you need answers to, or need help planning out your perfect trip, then do contact me. I have my Disney trip planning services where I can help you via a Zoom call, via a series of emails, or I even offer a concierge service where I plan out your entire trip for you, including a bespoke itinerary. And as I've mentioned, the food is something I absolutely love. And if you're planning to eat in table service restaurants and you need those reservations, do check out my Disney World dining booking service. It can be very stressful booking your dining, and you might not be available the time that it opens up. So if that is the case, let me handle it for you and get you absolutely everything that you want. And of course, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Here I give you tons and tons of videos packed full of tips and advice to help you get the most out of your Disney trip, and all of these resources are free. But if you do want that little bit of help, do go check out my website, mostmagicalguides.com. Thank you so much for watching this video, and until next time, I hope you have a most magical day. Bye bye.